Luffy is getting scolded. I guess it was his turn. Scopper Gaban is every bit the monster that we expected him to be. And we are really starting to learn what it means to be the king of the pirates. Now, I have trust you all know why I have gathered you here today. That is correct. It is to review and discuss the latest chapter of One Piece 1190, which is titled One Whose Death is Celebrated. And you know, let's get right into it. We pick up where we left off with Scopper Gaban blocking the attack against Luffy, but it looks like he did even more than that. Now, I missed this in last week's review, but Gaban is simultaneously freeing Luffy from the tree that he's pegged to and blocking the attack from Emu. And Scopper, he does not hold back against Luffy. We're going to see this here in a little bit. First, we see him slicing apart the tree. I don't know if he removes the swords himself or if he manages to just knock them free of Luffy, or maybe they pull out from the force of the tree being cut apart. But Gaban's goal here is actually clearly more to free Luffy and get him back up than it is to fight Emu, which makes sense. I mean, Scopper he's an old man. He admits this later on in the chapter. So while he has the capacity to stand up to Emu, he is aware that of the people on the island, he is not the one who has the capacity to fully stop Emu. Emu swipes at Gaban trying to attack him, and he just dodges it. I mean, it looks like he teleports. He's clearly jumping or moving really quickly. Maybe he's using Shunpo from Bleach. I don't know. But he moves swiftly. When we go to the next panel, it actually looks like it is a jump. Like he's leaping into the air. So he goes above. He jumps above Emu's sweep with the axe. And he comments to Emu, "What a hideous form. You don't even seem to be of this world." And Emu, in his ancient speak, asks Gaban, "Who art thou? Who are you to stand in Mu's way, to stand against the king of the world?" And Gaban mentions that I am someone who understands this world. You're an anomaly, even to me. Or maybe Emu's not an anomaly to him. Maybe Emu's form is an anomaly to him, or he's just never seen it. But Gaban, more than anyone on this island, he knows what's going on. And then he just turns his back on Emu like a boss. This is such a tremendous aura farming move. It is insane. You just see Conqueror's Haki like spewing off of him. That might be lightning, or maybe it's rubble and dust from the ground. Later on, we see him absolutely spewing Conqueror's Haki though. So even if he's not using it here, he is just walking away like a boss. And Emu's just like, "Bro, did you just turn your back on Mu, the king of the world? You don't just turn your back on me." And he scowls a little bit, gets the narrow eyes. And this is where Gaban lays it into Luffy. He's like, "Get up, boy." And he picks him up like by the shirt, even when Luffy's in pain, and he's like, "You disgust me, boy. You're an absolute disappointment." Do you realize what just happened? Think about this. An injured old man just saved your ass. Do you feel no shame from this? Are you not disappointed? Are you not entertained? Okay, well, Luffy shouldn't be entertained here. Gaban goes on and says something that I kind of think that a lot of us in the community might have been thinking or saying for a while now, when discussing the fact that Luffy is not at his pinnacle and there's definitely more room for him to grow. So Gaban's like, "So what? You have a shiny white form. You're the sun god Nika. So what? You've become a big shot emperor of the sea. None of that matters. Don't get cocky, boy. It's not as big of a deal as you think. And while Luffy is pleading for him to let go because it hurts, Scopper's got a point to get across. He's like, do you want to die here, Monkey D. Luffy? And Luffy's of course like, I'm not gonna die. What are you talking about? And Gaban says, you may as well have died back there. Right now, in this moment, you are pathetic. Do you understand? Do you realize what will happen if you kick the bucket? And Luffy's like, slowly this is starting to sink in a little bit. And he probably already knew this, right? He just wasn't actively admitting it. But he knows he won't be able to save his friends, home, anyone on this island. Not only will his journey be over, but he won't be able to protect the people he is striving to protect. And Gaban goes further. What's going to happen to your crew if you kick the bucket? And Luffy admits that they'd be in danger. So really, I appreciate this. I appreciate the way Scopper is treating Luffy here, because he's not coddling him like a boy. You know, he's almost viewing Luffy as an equal, right? Or even if it's not as an equal, then at the very least, he's giving him, this is almost closer to Garp. Garp's tough love, right? But this is the adult version of Luffy getting tough love, where Scopper's really putting in front of him almost that he's goofing off in this fight, which I don't necessarily think that he is, although in Gear 5th, you can never be sure. You know, maybe the level of fun Luffy feels he's having in Gear 5th leads him to goof off a little bit. But Gaban really hammers home, right? When you grow on the seas, when you rise up, when you reach the stage that even you are at, the number of enemies targeting you, it does not decrease. No, it goes up. It increases more and more. And here we get the drop, right, of what the chapter of the title really means. The King of the Pirates. It's a title reserved for one whose death is celebrated, because everyone is gunning for their throne, right? And if you think about Roger, who's the only example we have so far of the King of the Pirates, his death was the biggest bang in all of bangs, at least in terms of One Piece deaths. He went out on his own terms, kicking off the great pirate era we are in today. And in general, his death truly was celebrated, right? Here, if Luffy were to die in this fight against Emu on Elbaf, I mean, yeah, it would have the big moments in terms of him attempting to protect the island and his friends, although he'd be ending that in failure. But he'd really kind of just be dying like a dog, right? With a whimper, going out without anyone in the world ever finding out. Because you can best believe that the world government, well, they'd probably release the information that Straw Hat Luffy is dead as a deterrent, but it would be entirely on their terms. And there is a good possibility that all of his friends and all of Elbaf would go with him. So the circumstances here would be very different. And Gaban goes on to say, if any part of you still thinks becoming Pirate King is going to be a stroll in the park, then you got to pack it up and go home. You're done here. There's no point in you going on. In fact, if that is how you feel, or if even a part of you feels this, then you're not cut out for it. And in fact, you're just in the way. And he just tosses Luffy aside. Now, we can be pretty sure that Scopper understands, like I mentioned earlier, that he, Elbaf, everyone there needs Luffy to be up and facing off against Emu. Like, he recognizes, setting aside possibly Loki, who is also so heavily injured, Luffy is the only one here really fit, really capable of facing off Emu, but mentally he needs to be in that fight. He needs to be fully invested in that fight. And so as harsh as these words are, Scopper's drawing that out of Luffy and bringing it to the forefront in the quickest and best way possible in the given scenario. And he tosses Luffy aside, and Luffy's in pain. And he's like, this old man keeps running his mouth. I'll show him. I'll show you, Scopper Gaban. And this is exactly what Scopper wants, right? Again, he needs Luffy to get his head in the game. And this is the path that he is taking towards achieving that. If you like my videos, if you like what I am saying, the things that I do, if you love my recently freshly trimmed beard, it is much less unruly than it was before, then I would invite you to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, leave a comment. All of these things, they are very important for small channels such as mine, and I can assure you that I would greatly appreciate it. And then he turns his attention back to Emu with an attack called Praying Mantis Axe. He might even follow up with another attack called Praying Mantis Plum. I think both of those techniques are Scopper's, and Emu's twirling his axe, and he blocks the attack, asking, is this a jest? Are you the court jester of Elbaf, Scopper Gaban? What do you think you're doing here? And Scopper asks Emu, you want to kill him, don't you? That's what you're really after. And of course, Emu's like, indeed. He made that pretty clear. Although, for somebody who wants to take out Luffy, he was kind of toying with him a little bit in the last chapter. But at the same time, he was regularly doing or engaging in fatal blows, right? So even if he was taunting him and toying with him a little bit, it's not like he wasn't dealing heavy damage. And now, Grandmaster Taunter, Rage Baiter version 2 of Elbaf takes the stage. Scopper starts running his mouth, not to Luffy, but to Emu. He really reminds you of him, doesn't he? That boy reminds you of Joy Boy. That's why you're so invested in this, isn't it? King of the world. And Emu is pressing Scopper like, who are you? Like, how do you know this? You know more than you should. Who am I talking to? He pulls out another one of the founding weapons from his Omen Maki ring, one we didn't get to see before, called Hon Bami Toshiro. And the translator note here tells us that this sword translates to Bone Eater, forged by one of the big 3 Japanese swordsmiths. I'm sure there's going to be a follow-up to my last video. I'll link it here somewhere, where I talk about the founding weapons that were revealed so far. Now we have a new one. I'm certain that I'll be doing a part 2 to this once we learn some more of these named weapons, such as this one. But here we have Bone Eater, Hone Bame Toshiro, and the sword looks like it can emit like Maki serpents out of it. We see him flinging. First off, Emu's joined the dual wielding club, so he's still got the axe, the Shing Ten axe in one hand, and then he has Honibame Toshiro in the other hand, and he's lunging forward with both a sword attack against Scopper, who Scopper's blocking, but also we have these 2 serpents, these Maki-mouthed serpents coming out of the blade and also attacking Scopper. And that might be the Bone Eater portion of it, right? Where the sword itself can devour the bones of its enemies. Or, you know, something along those lines. And then Scopper be dropping lore. Not exactly things that we don't fully already know, but he be dropping these lore lines. So Emu's not the only one dropping lore now. Now we got it on both sides. We got Scopper, and Emu's been running his mouth this whole time. Scopper says, I learned from Joy Boy's own words. I learned the truth of this world from the man himself, indirectly anyway. But don't get me wrong, whoever you are. I have no intention of chasing after a person from the past that I've never even met. Instead, I simply want to see my captain's dream through to the end. And Emu's coughing here. He's feeling the pain. I'm not so sure this is because of attacks being dealt to him. This is probably more like damage over time caused by him being in the lower realm and using his abilities so much. So Emu is slowly getting worn down. I mean, we are hitting him with attacks. Loki got some hits in on him. Luffy got, I think, 1 hit in on him. Scopper's getting some hits in on him. But I think that he is doing more damage to himself by just being out here fighting in this form, fighting the way he is, than any of the opponents he has faced so far. Now, Luffy, while this fight is going on, while Emu is asking Scopper who his captain is, who do you have so much loyalty towards? Who were you with that let you learn so much about the world? Luffy has an interesting comment. He is still in pain on the ground. Shockingly, he is still in Gear 5th, though. I wonder if he realizes that if he drops Gear 5th, there's no coming back from that. Like, he just can't let it dispel. Or if this is a sign of his timeline of his endurance in Gear 5th improving, even if it is forcibly. But he's like, stupid old man looking down on me. I'm going to show him. I'm going to show him who's the real boss here. He ain't going to get away with these words. I'm not going to let him. I'm telling you, I'm not going to let him. And then Luffy's like, heal. Come on, heal. Even if it is just for a tiny bit. It feels as if Luffy is like willing himself, like willing Gear 5th to heal him of his wounds, even if it is temporarily. Now, that would be crazy if he could do that, right? I think it would come with a damage and stamina cost that would hit him at the end. It might, let's say that Luffy can temporarily heal himself with Gear 5th. Let's say that that's an ability he unlocks. I would expect it to work similarly to Emporio Ivankov's hormones, right? Where he could inject Luffy and it did get him back up on his feet. It did heal him temporarily, but there was a severe cost to that in the form of the shaving of his overall lifespan and extra damage being taken back to him at the end. Or maybe like the mink medicine that Zoro took in Wano, right? Where it gets you back up, but you're going to feel those effects even more by the end of it. And, you know, like Luffy, there's a common trend with Luffy's lifespan regularly being shaved off by his actions in the course of the story. I have had this thought in the back of my head for a long time now, that Luffy is not going to make it through the end of this story, or he's barely going to make it to the end of this story, because of the amount of his lifespan that he has shaved off in the time of the story. Maybe Oda's not going to do that, though. Perhaps he will show future years for Luffy. You know, maybe Chopper comes up with something. But let's say Luffy does heal himself here somehow through Gear 5th. There will be a cost associated with that, even if we don't see it directly. Moving along, we have Scopper, still in aura farming mode, man. He's aura farming this whole chapter. He's really raising his aura stocks up through the roof. He's staying there looking badass with his 2 axes, and he answers Moo's question. Who is my captain, you ask? He is none other than the king of the pirates, Gol D. Roger. And Emu gets a flashback, as he's been getting a lot of flashbacks in this arc, thinking about how it is distasteful for a D, a filthy, dirty D, to be called the king of the pirates. And this is like the origin point right here. This is Emu addressing the 5 elders, of which Saturn is a part of, although I don't actually know if Saturn is drawn in this panel. Oda might, he only draws 4 of them. Oh no, there's the 5th one here. Maybe Saturn's the obscured one. Like Oda from the past is already hinting at, bro, you ain't gonna make it. In any case, Emu says, do not let his name spread any further than it already has. And they can't stop the news from talking about the king of the pirates, right? Like, there's just no way that won't spread. It's too big. He made too large of an impact for the world government to truly cover it up. So what I think this is the origin point of Gold Roger. where they were like, okay, well, we can't stop his name from spreading, but what we can do is publish it not as Goldie Roger, but as Gold Roger, so as to remove the D from the name that the majority of people come to know. And so Scopper says, that's right, my captain was the one who ushered in this very golden age of piracy that you are now coming up against. And Emu asks what might be a silly question, but then again, maybe not. Maybe I'm just crazy. He asks, why would you, a former crew member of the King of the Pirates, go out of your way to protect Straw Hat Luffy? And Scopper is just rage baiting Emu so hard. I'm not sure if this is actually rage baiting or just taunting, or if this is just Scopper being smug. It is one of those, if not a handful of them. And he states, because you're trying so hard to get rid of him. Of course I want to stop you. You're putting forth all this effort. Doesn't this explanation seem the most obvious to you? And then he says something so cool. This line, this scene, it is so badass. And it shows that despite his harsh words to Luffy earlier, he's trying to draw out that attitude. He's trying to elevate Luffy to the stage that he knows that is in Luffy's future. And he demonstrates this by saying to Emu, while having a flashback of Roger stating, we were just too early. Eventually, someday, there will be an individual that rises up who will surpass us. It's going to happen, even if we don't know exactly when. Although they might have known when, because Odin really had that 20 years on lock. So I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the Roger Pirates knows it as well. But Scopper says, listen, Emu, listen up. When you declared a kid like that a threat, you might as well have announced to all of us that Monkey D. Luffy is the individual that we have been waiting for all this time. And in this panel, we got Scopper, we got Rayleigh, we got Crocus, we got Shanks, we got the aforementioned Odin, Kozuki Odin, and then Edward Newgate Whitebeard. Major players of that former era, both part of and not part of Roger's crew. And he's like, bro, Emu, what you have done, right, is you have confirmed for us that this is the one we have been waiting for. And Emu's like, well, I suppose you make a valid point, Gaban. We were hasty and foolish. And now he brings up his hand symbol. We got Omen, Maki, Flames. It looks like he's about to use Stigma to finish off Luffy, right? Because we've got the Maki, Omen, Flame coming up from Luffy, the tracking one where he can hit him with Stigma. And by hasty and foolish, Emu was referring to Luffy being the one they've been waiting for. He says, perhaps we simply mistook numerous coincidences for fate. No matter. Let us put an end to this. And Gaban's like, wait, hold on, bro. Hold on, you idiot. Gaban calls Emu an idiot, which is it's just great. It's just spectacular seeing Scopper both be strong enough to actually stand up to Emu, not just get instantly offed, but also just so elegantly running his mouth. I love it so much. And Scopper apologizes to the Treasure Tree Adam. He's like, I don't want to devour you. Mountain Eater on his way. He doesn't want to devour the Tree of Elbaf. Yet he has no choice. And here he jumps into the air and he is emitting Conqueror's Haki out the wazoo. And you know, he attacks with his blades, right? But right now he's rearing his blades back. He's rearing his axes back for an attack. He hasn't fully swung them during this technique yet. I don't think. That's not what it looks like. It looks like he's still rearing them back. And yet his Conqueror's Haki bolts themselves are doing damage to the terrain. They are cutting through the tree in 2 points. One of them is striking Emu, who's blocking it with Maki, with Omen. And it actually looks like the Conqueror's Haki from Gaban makes it through Emu's defenses and hits him. So this is like this doesn't even, maybe this is a directed attack by Scopper. It could be, where he's trying to do a preliminary strike that he's going to follow up with his axes. But this is a level of Conqueror's Haki control that we have not seen a lot of. So the two other instances that we have seen with this level of control, this precision, while using Conqueror's Haki, not just as coding, but as a direct attack itself, is Shanks using his Wi-Fi Haki against Green Bull, against Aramaki, to just scare him shitless, frankly, and push him right out of his Logia form. And Garp using Galaxy Impact on Hachinosu. So these legends are showing us, and Shanks, a trainee, a follow-up to these legends, they are showing us just how much control they have over Conqueror's Haki. And this is a demonstration to me right here of the stage that Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji at least are going to need to reach by the end of the story to really be at the level necessary to become the King of the Pirates and the wings of the King of the Pirates. I'm not sure if any of the other crew members are going to gain Conqueror's Haki, and if they do, I don't think they'll reach this level of control. This is probably going to be reserved right here, at least for the Straw Hats, for Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. There will probably be other individuals from their generation who reach this tier of power, but from the crew, I think it's going to be those three. And here we get that demonstration. And the tree is already splitting apart, so Gaban's goal is to push them down to the underworld of Elbaf and really push Emu away from Luffy and buy him just a little bit more time. And Emu is like feeling the pressure. We can see he's shocked by this level of Haki. Now, I missed in the last panel, but Gaban comments on his age. He was like, ow, from this attack. He's like, ugh, man, damn. He says, damn, my joints ache. This body of mine is getting run down. So Scopper is, you know, like Oda's doing a good job at showing that, yeah, Scopper is still him. He is incredibly strong, but he is also not in his prime. And his old age is to some degree catching up to him. And so he follows up like with now he's bringing his axes down, right? So he's emitted his Conqueror's Haki, he's coded his blades, he's done the setup for this attack. Emu's now taunting him. Old as thou are, you still think you're the Pirate King's crew, huh? He is, bro. He is definitely still the Pirate King's crew. There ain't no change in that. And so Emu's attacking with Honibami with his new sword that he brought out this chapter. And Scopper uses an attack called 8,000 slash Grim Throng. And we see just a ton of axe blade attacks swinging down at Emu. This is a crazy maneuver here. Now, I think he used a similar attack against Zoro and Luffy. And let's see, let's actually look back, okay, and find out what attack does Gaban use against Luffy and Zoro. So the attack he uses against Luffy and Zoro is Yosu Takeru, and the number that precedes that is 80. The number that precedes this attack is 8,000. So is this technique that he's using against Emu 100 times stronger than the attack he used against Zoro and Luffy? While I can't be certain of that, I wouldn't put it out of the realms of possibility. So that just like, that is a huge number. That is a big gap, you know? And so, and is that saying that Luffy needs to become 100 times stronger than he is now? I don't know. That's a huge jump in terms of where he's already from. But what we can be certain of is that this technique that Scopper used against Emu here is so much stronger than the attack that he used against Luffy and Zoro. But you can see on the side, the snake from Emu's Honibami is like hitting him. He's got blood coming off. And I think that's how he loses his arm. We're going to see in the last page that one of Scopper's arms gets taken out by Emu, and I'm pretty sure this is the moment in which it happens. And so we got Emu blocking the attack, both of his weapons out. It's cool to see Emu dual wielding too. Scopper's like, I could say the same to you, you know, implying that maybe Emu's not who he once was in terms of power. Like, it's possible that Emu has weakened over time from his ancient kingdom era. Then we get them all falling down to the realm of the dead, right? Like Scopper took out all the branches they were on, or at least a chunk of the branches they were on, and they're both plummeting. We cut back to Loki and Gerd, and they're like, what is that? What is going on? We got Ragnar in the back. Nami's like, did Luffy do that? And Usopp, my man Usopp, he's demonstrating his observation haki growth. Like, I really want him to lock in and gain mastery over it in this arc. He comments, no, that was not Luffy. It was someone else. And this individual is strong, overwhelmingly strong. So I think he doesn't know it's Scopper, right? He can't pick that much up. And maybe Usopp hasn't felt Scopper's haki before because he's only just now becoming more in tune with his observation haki again. But I think he can recognize that there is a gap. There's a big gap in the level of power and Conqueror's haki that Scopper is emitting versus the level of power that even Luffy can emit. And here we reach the end of the chapter. Scopper is huffing and puffing. He's laying on his back in the underworld. His axes are on the ground, and one of his arms is chopped off like above the elbow. So like from here down, he totally lost his arm. And like, you know, I hope Scopper lives. He is one character on Elbaf that I can see not making it through the end. He even kind of foreshadowed this a little bit earlier when he told Luffy, if Elbaf is still here, or he could have been saying, if I'm still here, come talk to me afterwards. So I hope that this is just his Shanks moment where he just loses one of his arms. Who knows? People have already lost appendages in this arc and gotten them back. So maybe Gerd or Scopper can just attach that arm for him right back on and he's good. But what I do think is this might end his role of staving off Emu, right? And Luffy notices this. He's like, wait, what? Old man? And he's looking down at Scopper. And Luffy, bro, Monkey D. Luffy, this is the moment right here in which you have to lock in. I do still think that there might be a group effort against Emu involving some of the other Straw Hats and the Giants of Elbaf. I'm not going to say that Luffy is doing this entirely on his own. I want Loki to get back up. I want to see his hybrid form. I want to see Hyruden do something cool. I want to see Usopp do something cool. I want to see some of the Straw Hats or all of the Straw Hats band together in a group battle against Loki. In a group battle against Emu. I made a video about that as well. I'll put it somewhere up here. I do want to see these things. I want a Thriller Bark 2.0 where everybody is going all in against Emu. But at the end of the day, when we move all of that to the side, Luffy is going to be the individual who is doing the most work against Emu, matched possibly only by Loki. I could really see a scenario where this ends on a 2v1. Sun God Nika Luffy, hybrid formed Ninhogg Loki fighting Emu until he is pushed out, or until the arc ends in some other way. If Oda was a younger man, if Oda was a younger writer, and he had more time, like he was willing to make One Piece longer than I think he wants to be, because I know Oda doesn't want to rush his story, but he wants to be able to do stuff with his family, right? I just don't see the Straw Hats taking a major loss here and having to go through another time skip, having to go through another setback. And a lot of that is from the meta perspective of just Oda and his age, right? And his health steadily declining, as happens with all of us when we get older. That's unavoidable. You can't get away from it. So I really think that the Straw Hats, they're going to grow here. They're maybe not going to win directly outright, but they're also not going to lose outright either. And I do see almost more of maybe a tie style outcome coming from the end of this arc, with the main growth for the Straw Hats happening in the fights themselves, and us really giving each crew member that next big step, even if it's not their final step, right? Like, I think they're all going to experience a growth in power in the fight against Blackbeard as well, but this is going to bring the crew up to the real entry point of being not just a Yonko crew, but being a Pirate King crew, just as Scopper has described to all three of our monster trio, at least, Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy now, throughout the course of this arc. I am fairly certain there's a break next week. I don't think that this is an Oda break. I think this is a magazine break, but we are going to have another break. You might not know this because my channel is pretty small, but I'm unemployed right now. I've been spending a lot of my time applying for jobs because as much as I would love to do YouTube as a job, that's not really feasible. So if I can, through applications, I will get some discussions out. If there's some comments on the... If there's enough comments on this video, perhaps I can do a follow-up that way. I'm writing a Zoro power-up video right now that I'm going to try to do next. It seems like a great time. Maybe even something on Luffy. And yeah, that's it. So leave a comment. You know, here's the end of the chapter. We've made it. I think Luffy's going to lock in this next chapter. But that's all for today. So with that, I would like each and every one of you to have an excellent rest of your day.